Now we're going to take a look at how to make a bar graph to go along with an independent samples t-test, or to make a bar graph to go along with any other kind of analysis that it would be appropriate to use for. So I'm using the same data that I've been using for the independent samples t-test example. Just as a quick reminder, this means that we're looking at 20 participants. 10 of them have received cognitive behavioral treatment for anxiety, and 10 of them have received a waitlist control or no treatment. We're interested in comparing their anxiety scores at the end of treatment or the end of the waiting period, and we want to know whether those with the CBT or the cognitive behavioral therapy have a lower anxiety score compared to those who are in the waitlist control or no treatment group. So to create a graph, I'm going up here to Graphs and Chart Builder. And the Chart Builder will, unless you ask it not to, remind you that to use Chart Builder effectively, you have to have your variables labeled as nominal, ordinal, or scale. This is just SPSS trying to make sure people are using the software appropriately, but it won't work if you don't label your variables appropriately. So it's a reminder. We've already done this. We've labeled the treatment variable as nominal and the anxiety variable as scale. So I can just hit OK. All right, let me reset this. So once I'm in the chart builder, I have sort of a practice area where I can start building my chart. I have all the variables in my data set listed on the left, and in the gallery I have all of the options for the kinds of charts I want to create down below. So because I want to compare two groups on a continuous variable, the best representation for this would be a bar graph. So I'm going to drag a simple bar up here. Once I've done that, now the Element Properties tab pops up. I'm going to just leave it off here to the side so I can look at it later. And then I'm given options to add variables to the X and the Y axis. So in thinking about this, I want to know exactly what it is that would make sense as a group. So a bar should represent a group, a distinct group from another one. And the two distinct groups I have are my treatment conditions. So I'm going to take my treatment condition and bring that variable to the x-axis. And notice now the chart preview is trying to use my data to give me an example of what this data graph is going to look like. Now I'm going to take my post-treatment anxiety score, my continuous variable, and put it on the y-axis. Now, I also want to be able to represent what kind of range or parameters around this mean score might best represent kind of a likely estimate. So to do that, I'm going to display error bars. And this is in the Element Properties tab, popped up here. And if it ever goes away, you can always pop it up again looking down here on the bottom right corner. So I'm going to choose Display Error Bars. And there are many reasons why you might want to choose each of these. We're going to choose confidence intervals at the 95% level because this represents a very typical way to look at a mean and then a range of possible means. So the confidence intervals say that we're 95% confident that the actual mean is contained within this range. So we're going to hit Apply. And notice now I've got these bars showing up. I'm going to close out of the Element Properties. Notice that this is just an estimate of what the data might look like. Don't get too concerned if this data doesn't look exactly the way that you expect your actual data will look. It's just an estimate, and it's meant to help you and not get in your way. Now I've done everything I need to do, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And my graph will show up in the output file, similar to where my data analysis would go. And here I see my y-axis is labeled with the variable name I gave it, which is the post-treatment anxiety. The treatment condition is labeled as well with CBT and waitlist control. What I can see is that this represents what I expected, which is that CBT results in lower anxiety compared to waitlist control. And also the 95% confidence intervals say, considering possible ranges, even the possible ranges of likely means here are not overlapping with the possible ranges of likely means here. So it's likely that the actual difference between these two is significant or different enough as well. So there are a lot of things that you can do to clean up a graph and make it appropriate for production. We'll cover that in a different area, but in terms of getting the basic information, this is all we need.